What's up, guys? It's Josh from Cardfight Empire here. I forgot to do this video, so I'm actually going to do it now, a couple days later. But I was going to record a deck profile of what I made top 8 with in the case tournament at Dabbers. So I played Nova Grappler. It was a standard tournament for the case tournament. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into that. If you guys haven't checked it out already, be sure to check out the Dabbers video that I made. They're a pretty cool store, and they have pretty cool people there, so you guys can just check out the Dabbers video that I did on my last video. But with that being said, let's get right into the deck. So we ran the Nova Grappler standard deck. There's not much to say about it really, but it does have a few kind of like quirky things about it that's really good, and some things that are really bad because it just has bad matchups in this specific format. I like playing it because it gives me a little more challenge than just playing like, you know, the obviously broken stuff. And also Nova Grappler is one of the first clans I ever played in the game, so I definitely want to support my clan or one of my clans. And so first, we start off with Battle Riser as our starter. Very important that we run Battle Riser and not tap the Hyper, I believe it is, which is the other starter that you can run in standard. This card interacts directly with other cards in our deck, like high-powered Riser Custom, so you definitely want to make sure that you're running Battle Riser specifically. It also kind of in a way affects Perfect Riser too after you start Soul Blasting. So this card, when you ride upon it, when you ride to grade 1, just lets you draw a card. Obviously you guys know that if you guys have been playing standard. If you guys have been playing premium, these are the new starters that we get that when you ride upon them just lets you draw a card, and there's no more Forerunner for now at least. Then we ran 6 of our Excel marker, 4 of the Kamui one, 2 regular one. It really doesn't matter how many you run. I run 6 just to be on the safe side. We're probably never going to use it 6 times just because we don't ride to grade 3 that often. The max that I've ever gotten off in a game comfortably is 3 Excel markers. So if you want to run just 3, you can. You don't need 6 by any means, but I just run 6 just to have them and just to have the space. The Excel marker, for those of you who have not been playing standard, this is part of the new imaginary gift system that they have going on. Basically, when you ride a grade 3, it'll have a imaginary gift symbol that is the same symbol as this symbol, but it'll be on the card, and it will say what kind of imaginary gift it is under it. The imaginary gift that's under it will have to do with what clan it's a part of. So Nova Grappler is part of Excel, which is one of the 3 imaginary gifts. As you guys can see, if you guys want to know all about that, just go check out my future fights on these clans, and I'll teach you all about that. But Excel basically gives us an open rearguard circle, which allows us to, in Nova Grappler, attack multiple times, and that just makes it really good. While we're on this grade 3, let's talk about it. We run 4 Perfect Risers. Perfect Riser is basically like the ace card of the deck. You always run a ride this card if you can. It has 2 abilities. The first ability is when you attack, you counterblast 2, and then you can restand 2 cards in your front row. Very good with the Excel circle because obviously the more Excel circles you have, the more attacks that you can get off with it. If this is your the first time in the game that you're riding Perfect Riser, you should have 4 front row spaces, including your Vanguard, so that's 4 attacks. And then when you restand 2 with Perfect Riser, as long as they can hit the Vanguard by themselves, then it'll be 6 attacks. So very, very good. Also, its secondary ability is really, really good for refunding the cost of the first ability and also pumping up your rearguards even more. It can attack Vanguard or rearguard for both skills, which is very important because when you're playing against force clans like Royal Paladin, Kagero, you just want to attack into their rearguard if you cannot hit their Vanguard, because a lot of times Kagero especially is going to blow up your back row. So against Kagero, you just kind of don't play back row, but if you don't ever play back row, that means that you won't be able to attack their Vanguard because it'll be 12 to 13, and you don't want to attack with the chance of hitting them if you check a trigger, if you can just attack their rearguard, in my opinion. So the on-hit skill is when this attack hits, you can countercharge 1, and if you have a Riser card in your soul, which is why that I said Battle Riser is very important to having to your soul, because if we happen to not ride a Riser grade 1 or a Riser grade 2, or we soul blast them out for some ability, we do want to be able to have our on-hit skill be live. So in order to have the on-hit skill be live, you have to have a Riser card in your soul and you have to hit, and then this card will countercharge 1 and give a rear guard plus 5,000 power, which makes the first skill essentially counterblast 1 if you use it that same turn and you get to hit. Moving on to our next grade 3, we have 4 Battledore Fighter. So Battledore Fighter is kind of like one of our backup grade 3s, but it's also our best rear guard in the entire deck. The way that works out is it has a Vanguard rear guard skill on one half, and then the other skill is just Vanguard. So it does have Excel, so when you ride it, you do get an Excel marker, so you get an additional rear guard circle. And then it has a activation skill that says Counterblast, Soul Blast. You give a unit an ability to your opponent has to block that unit with 2 or more cards, or they basically cannot guard it at all. This is very good with cards that restand, which the only card that it synergizes with in this entire deck really is Burst Riser. But you have to have 2 Counterblast and 2 Soul to do it, which is kind of heavy in this deck, so you want to make sure that you have it when you do it. If you are on Perfect Riser the entire game and you put your opponent to 5 damage, they have something like 7 cards in their hand. When you re-ride to Battledore Fighter, you'll gain a second Excel circle, making for 5 attacks in your front row. And then if you put Battledore Fighter's skill on Burst Riser, and you have the skill for, or you have the cost for Burst Riser as well, you can attack twice with Burst Riser and make your opponent drop at least 2 cards for Burst Riser both times, meaning that if your opponent has like 7 cards or something like that, they might die to it. Whereas if you have, 6 attacks with Perfect Riser, they might not die to that. But if they have 7 cards in their hand, they have to guard 2/2 twice, so that's 4, and then they have 4 more attacks to deal with as well. So really, really good as a finisher. If you have to ride it in the early game, could be fine too, as long as you have Burst Riser. Otherwise, the skill is just kind of meh, in my opinion, unless you can just put your opponent to high damage really quickly. The second ability is when it attacks a Vanguard, if you have 3 or more rear guards, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, which means that it's swinging 17 most of the time. This is very, very good on other Excel clans and Protect clans, such as other Nova Grappler players or OTT, soon to be Tachikaze, Grand Blue, stuff like that. As long as they have a 12k base, that's fine. And then you can swing at them for 17, which is actually a number that requires them to guard for 10 or more. And then otherwise, you're just swinging just to hit force. So if you can hit 13k Vanguards with this, it'll just be a 5k block for them, unfortunately, but at least you're hitting them at all rather than not hitting them. Also, something to note is that when this card's on the Excel circle, it's 27, which is the biggest natural number that we can hit in this deck build that we run. Our last grade 3 that we run is 1 Assure Kaiser. I did think about switching this card out for Maximum Riser, if you guys are familiar with that card, but I decided to go with the Assure Kaiser in the tournament just because I don't want to have scenarios where this is the only card that I can ride and then it not have the Excel gift. So Maximum Riser is really good as a rear guard only. If it's on your Vanguard, it pretty much sucks. So if you ride Assure Kaiser, you still get that imaginary gift. And then also in some situations, Assure Kaiser is just really, really good, better than Perfect Riser in some case scenarios, just because if your opponent denies you Counterblast, this card does not require Counterblast to use its skill. So you can just do a lot of things throughout the game, and then at the point where you're at 5 flip damage face down, your opponent's not letting you hit with Perfect Riser anymore because they would die, you can actually just re-ride to Assure Kaiser and still get your restands off. Its skills, when you drive check reveals a grade 2 or greater, you get to stand a rear guard, and then if that card is grade 3, you can counterblast 1 additionally to add 10,000 to the card that you just restood. Moving on to our grade 2s, we have 4 high-powered Riser Custom. Like I said before, this card interacts directly with Battle Riser. Its skill is when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can choose a Battle Riser card from your Soul, which it will always be in the Soul when you ride to grade 2 on this card, just because it stays in the Soul. So you have it as your starter. you ride a 1, and then you ride a 2, and then this card will call out Battle Riser in the same column as it. So remember that column is vertical, so you will call out which is why in the early game you also should not place a booster behind your Vanguard, because when you ride to grade 2, if you're riding High Power Riser Custom, you want to be able to call a Battle Riser out to the back. Which a lot of times your opponent is either not going to let high-powered Riser Custom hit, or when you do hit, your opponent will check a trigger or something like that. So you have a lot of scenarios where you don't actually want to go in for the skill because your rearguard that's restanding would not hit. So you actually just want to keep this on your board as a booster for Perfect Riser as long as you can use it. So if you're fighting against Kagero, Battle Riser is probably not going to be there for that long, so enjoy it while you can. But yeah, that's what you want to do basically when your opponent is not allowing high power Riser Custom skill to go off, or they check a trigger. But the secondary skill that we were talking about is when this card's attack hits, you can, or it has to hit a Vanguard. So when it hits a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and put a Battle Riser back into your soul, and then you restand one of your rear guards. So pretty good for a little early game rush, but nothing beyond that. Next for our grade 2s, we run 4 Burst Riser. A lot of people don't like this card. They run Iron Killer and Cut Bowler as their combo, but I really like Burst Riser just because if my opponent counterboss denies me, it only costs a counterboss and a Soul Blast. We pretty much always have the soul to do it unless we are on Battledore Fighter and we're using the combo with that. That combo sucks up a lot of soul really rapidly, so you want to be careful of that. But otherwise, if we're on Perfect Riser or even a Shurikaiser, this card is really good with the Shurikaiser, but also really good with Perfect Riser because it allows you to stand 3 with Burst Riser standing by its own ability and then Perfect Riser standing 2 other cards. But when your Vanguard attacks, you can counterboss Soul Blast and stand this card. And then if your opponent has 4 more damage, then it gets 3,000 when it restands, which is obviously relevant for other Excel clans and other Force clans as well, because they'll be 12k base and it moves itself to 22. Then we have 4 Cut Bowler. Cut Bowler is one of our new hero cards that we run. This is also a reason that we run 4 Battledore Fighter, the grade 3 that we're talking about, because we do run the hero engine in this build. So we run 4 of the hero grade 3, 4 Cut Bowler, and then 4 of the Rocket Hammerman just to support Cut Bowler. So Cut Bowler skill is during your turn if you have another hero card on your field, and this card gets plus 5,000 power continuously, so 14k base during your turn. Really good against Force because you can hit 13k Vanguards. Also really good on the grade 2 turn because if you can just play double Cut Bowler and then you ride high powered Riser Custom, you go bam, then you have 14-14, and against Force that actually makes a difference rather than playing Iron Killer who has to have 3 rear guards. And this is also good against Kagero because you don't have to overextend to hit them. With Iron Killer you do have to overextend a little bit to hit them, just playing out more rear guards than you really want to. Then we have 4 Riser Custom. Riser Custom, a lot of people don't like this card as well, but I really love this card. It really does force like a lot out of your opponent. Like I kind of hold it into my hand until my opponent's at like 4 or 5 damage, and I know that it's like worth to play it down because otherwise it's a 10k guard in my hand, and against stuff like Kagero, Waterfall, like I'm gonna need as much shield as I can get. So I kind of hold it in my hand usually, unless I'm riding it or I'm going for a kill turn. But its first skill is you can put a card from your hand into the soul, and this card can attack on the first turn and it gets -1 drive check. So a lot of people don't like that skill. I do like using it in certain scenarios, like if I have like some kind of useless card in my hand, like a front trigger at one point, I can ride, and then if I'm going first, I can shove the front trigger into my soul, and then I can attack my opponent. Most of the time your opponent lets the damage go through, and that's good for you just because it forces either a card from your opponent's hand or forces that early damage. So the more damage that you can get on them the earlier the better for you, because in Nova Grappler you just want to kill them. So obviously the higher damage they have, the quicker you can kill them and the quicker you can get the game over with, which is towards your objective, and your goal is to win fast. Its second ability is when your other rearguard in the same column as this unit restands, this card can restand as well. So this card is very synergetic with any card that Perfect Riser stands, but it's also really synergetic with Burst Riser. So you can swing with Burst Riser, and then when Burst Riser restands from its own ability, Riser Custom in the back row will stand as well. So very important to keep that in mind, and try to always play them in a column with each other if the Burst Riser is not on a cell circle. Then we have 4 Rocket Hammerman, just like I said before. We really never use the actual skill. We're just running it because it's an 8K and it's a hero. If we had another better 8K hero grade one, I'd probably be running it instead because this card only activates when it boosts, and like I told you guys, we try not to play boosters in this deck. So its skill is for when it's relevant. If your opponent's at 5 damage, that's the only way that I activate it. But when this card boosts a hero, you can Soul Blast 1 card, and then you can have this card given 5,000 until the end of the battle. Or sorry, it's actually end of turn, but that doesn't matter because you're only going to be attacking for that 1 attack. Moving on to our last grade one, we have 4 Jet Riser. This card is like very much so an MVP card. On the surface it looks weak, but it actually does help you fight against a lot of force clans evenly, by especially Kagero, because they're going to blow up your cards. So if they leave a Jet Riser, you can just play 2 cards and then suddenly this card is 13k base. So when your other rearguard is placed, this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So placing plus 3,000 power on it twice will allow it to be 13k base and allow you to hit a 13k Vanguard like Royals or Kagero. Moving on to our triggers, we have 8 front triggers. I like running 8 front triggers. A lot of people like running draws more. I like front triggers at their max, which is 8 in this, just because it protects your rear guards when you check it on the defensive, and then when you check it on the offensive, like, it really can help you get over your opponent's entire like trigger check. And that's one of the weaknesses to this deck, is your opponent checking triggers on the defensive. So you really want to do everything you can to allow your attacks to hit. Just like, you know, if your opponent hits a draw trigger on defensive, like, you could hit draw triggers as well, but like only one of your rear guards will be able to hit instead of all of your rear guards being able to hit off of checking 1 front trigger. So that's very, very good. If they could hit before and your opponent checks a trigger, then they can hit now when you get a front trigger as well. We run 4 of our Sentinel triggers, which is Twin Blader. Twin Blader is basically our Sentinel trigger, which means that it's our PG, that's a draw trigger. These are new to Standard for those of you who are premium players and have not played Standard yet. These are really, really good. It allows you to check a draw trigger, and not only do you have a draw trigger in your hand, but it also doubles as a PG, which means that when you draw a card, you're actually getting bonuses off of it because you will always have a card to PG with, which is really, really good. And then if you go on the defensive, and on the defensive, you'll be checking a draw trigger, so that's very, very good. Our last card in the deck is 4 Wall Boy, literally just a heal trigger, the only heal trigger that we can run in Standard, and it has a 20k shield, so a lot of times it helps you guard those really big attacks that you can't guard with Sentinels, like Waterfall and stuff like that. But yeah, that has been the Nova Grappler deck. Yeah, that has been the Nova Grappler deck. I hope you guys enjoy the deck profile. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. It helps a lot more than you guys think. Also, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the Nova Grappler deck, if you have ideas of your own, or if you have questions about the deck. Also, be sure to subscribe down below and click the bell button next to the subscription button to be notified of when our content goes live. Check the description down below as well for our social medias, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as always, if you guys want to support the channel a little more than liking and subscribing, you can check out our Patreon and our merch store. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.